with all of this conflict, all of these ugly things going on, the weather dynamics and climate change and all of these things, but there's also this other timeline, other dimension that we're being called to move into, view it. So I do think that the world as we know it is collapsing, is ending. Yes, those words could be used. I am Cassie. I am from Rhythm Roots and Faith. I am from Wisconsin, United States. I am super excited to be here today. Thank you for having me. I have been on quite a journey my entire life. My entire life has been spiritual in nature, and it's been all about my growth as an individual, uh, working on heart-centered matters, working on relationships, and it's become really interesting, especially over the last 5 years. When I decided to get sober, I had a pretty gnarly alcoholism issue. And so I've been sober now for about 5.5 years, and ever since making that decision, my life has just transformed in miraculous ways. And I've been led on a spiritual journey, and now I'm helping other people to step onto their spiritual paths, their personal growth paths, and help people to restore their belief in themselves and whatever lies beyond what feels true for them. So it's been a beautiful journey. So I've had a couple near-death experiences. All of them happened when I was in the midst of my alcoholism and very heavy in it. So one of them, I had a problem with drunk driving. What I liked to do when I was drinking very heavily is I wanted to listen to my music really loud and I would go for a drive. And so one of the times that I was going for a drive, it was actually winter here in Wisconsin. For those of you who don't know, the roads can get pretty slippery and icy. And so I was driving and I was very inebriated. And I actually ended up slipping and sliding in my vehicle, and I did a complete 180 in the middle of the highway, and I ended up facing the opposing traffic direction, and I saw this semi coming in my direction, and I was like this close to getting hit by that semi. And I remember, even in my state, I remember like I saw the lights coming at me, and I'm just like, I was just overtaken with like shock. And I was so surprised by what was happening. And in the blink of a moment, it was over, and I was left just kind of shaken up and like, wow, that was very intense. And then, I decided after that to head home. That did not stop my decisions to drink at that point. I had another situation while I was driving where I somehow, I'm not really sure what happened, but I had kind of beelined off to the right side of the road, and I ended up going down this very steep ditch. It was like a hill almost, and my vehicle went down into this ditch and into a cornfield. And in that moment, it was almost like I had almost left my body. It was like somebody else was driving the vehicle. And I heard like the noises and I felt the bumping of the vehicle getting kind of smashed up on the way down. But it was like something or someone had taken over the vehicle. And I remember stepping on the gas and I got myself back up onto the road and managed to drive about 5 miles back into town. My bumper had been torn off the back of my car. The front of my car, the headlight was completely smashed in, and I managed to drive this car about 5 miles into town without getting pulled over, without having, anything happen to me or anybody else, and I made it home in that state. That was near the end of my drinking career, that particular experience. Later that day, though, after I arrived home, I was I was doing something upstairs and we had these steep stairs in a house, and I'm not sure, I was very inebriated, and essentially I misstepped and I flew down the stairs, all the way down this entire flight of stairs. And I remember feeling my body twisting and turning in ways that it really should not have been able to. I remember landing on the bottom of the flight of stairs and my neck was all kinked up, and it's like the way that I fell, I absolutely could have broken my neck and I did not. So yeah, those were some experiences for me near the end of my drinking career, you could say, that really shook me, and really made me realize that I could not continue living my life this way anymore. I needed to change the way I was living. I needed to change the way that I was being. I wanted to be healthy for myself, for my kids, for my family, and so yeah, those were my wake-up calls. So when I had the situation where I was in my car and it felt like somebody had taken over, I definitely felt like I had left my body on a certain level. When I look back at it now from this perspective, what I believe happened is like I was no longer in my body and something or someone kind of stepped in and took over and got the vehicle back to the house safely. Because I don't really remember the point from which I went down into the ditch and the point at which I arrived home. That block of time, I don't remember anything that happened in that period of time, but I remember being at home and I remember the period of time before that. When I think about it from, this point of view at this point in my life, 5.5 years later, there's a couple theories that I have. First of all, it absolutely could have been like a guardian angel, right? Somebody coming in, swooping in, and kind of taking over. And another perspective that I've had is perhaps it was my future self. If you believe in timeline jumping and the ability that we have to move and shift between timelines, it's very possible that a future version of myself showed up at that moment and knew that that was going to happen because it's my future self and pops in. And in my experience, the third eye is really the ability to see the world through a different lens. Okay, so we are brought up as children in various different environments, and based on how we are raised, we kind of gain a certain filter through which we see the world. The third eye has the ability not only to see the future, but the past. I believe that we have the ability to see into the past and into the future and bring those, both the future and the present, or the past into the present moment. The way that I started learning how to do this for myself is through shamanic journey, which is sort of a meditative practice. What I learned how to do is you count down into a meditative state. The brain waves, when we are going to sleep and we kind of get into our dream state, there's different brainwave states that we can get into. And so getting into a deeper, more meditative state in shamanic journey, I have actually been able to explore some of my past lives from that place. And in doing so, here's what's been really amazing. So in doing so and being able to visit my past lives in the present moment and see why maybe, I've had people in this life that I actually experienced past lives with. And so I was able to see why maybe certain events unfolded in this life as a result of what happened in my past life. It's a very real thing that we can carry trauma from our past lives into this life. But here's where the magic happened. So in knowing what had happened in these past lives and also knowing what's happened in this life, now I'm able to change my perception, alter my perception, and therefore alter, my future reality on a certain level. I can tell you it's been seeming just more and more intense energetically over the past couple years. Like I said, the people that I work with, the people that I have in my life, my life personally, it just is very highly energetic times right now. It doesn't even matter necessarily what part of the world I think anymore. It's happening everywhere. So, what this feels like and what this looks like for me and from what I'm observing in the world around me, there are more people talking about, questioning maybe, the what we've been taught from being children and forward, what we learn in school, what our government is telling us to do, what the medical system is doing. Like, all of these things are beginning to be questioned, and people are beginning to, and if they haven't been already, like this is the thing, this has been going on for some time. I would say at least, 10 to 20 years it's really been amplifying, at least this is my perception. And it just continues to get more interesting. And so it's like the more that people wake up or become aware, start working on themselves, the more that we are noticing this sort of contrast in the world around us because we're trying to move to a new, way of being, a new dimension, you could say, a new reality. There's a lot of different schools of thoughts on what that is or what it looks like. But there's this contrast right now, and so there's this, you could say, 3D world that we are experiencing with all of this conflict, all of these ugly things going on, the weather dynamics and climate change and all of these things. But there's also this other timeline, other dimension that we're being called to move into, which is one of love, one of a wholeness, one of peace and harmony. It's absolutely already there. I think for me, the concept of, at some point there will be heaven on earth, like I believe it's here for us now. We just have to choose. We just have to choose. And so that's the reality that I'm choosing to create. Yes, but it's maybe not the way that most people would probably view it. So I do think that the world as we know it is collapsing, is ending. Yes, those words could be used. However, I don't feel like it has to be this doomsday thing. And it doesn't seem to me like it's necessarily going to be so black and white like that. So to me, the way this feels is sort of two different realities being lived at the same time. There's people who are going to maintain their belief in like this 3D reality that has been created and is continuing to be created. And then there's other people who are sort of in this other reality, right? And I think that both of those worlds are kind of intermingling right now and happening at the same time. Does that make sense? So to me, it's like I believe though that this reality that we've known and come to know is coming to an end, but that doesn't mean that we are coming to an end or that the world is ending. It means that things are changing, that things are shifting, the way that we are going to see the world, the way that we see ourselves, the way that we see the people around us, that's changing. And so you could say there's an ending, there's a death happening, but there's always a rebirth too on the other side of that. And so we're kind of going through that death and rebirth process right now, I feel. I think that, trying to pin a winner or a loser type of dynamic on any country in terms of like differences, like that just doesn't land for me. At least for me, that's my perception and how I view the world. So to me, it's like we're all collectively going through this on some level. We're all human. We're all part of the same divine consciousness, right? So if I'm looking from that perspective, which is how I see the world. It's not just one place or the other or the other. There is no us versus them. It doesn't have to be that way because we are all in this together. We're all on this planet together. We're all part of this same divine consciousness. We're all human. And so, what one person over here is experiencing, this person over here also is having some sort of experience. We're all having a human experience all at the same time. We just are filtering it through different ways of seeing the world at different points in our lives. I came into this world having a deep knowing. I remember being really young as a kid and having this hope and this faith in humanity and people. I knew at a very young age, or I felt like I knew at a very young age that everybody is inherently a good person, and that I just had these hopes and these dreams for this beautiful world. Becoming an adult and going through alcoholism, I absolutely lost that vision, that insight for quite some time. But I have gained it back, and I do absolutely see so much hope and so much beauty in everybody that I meet and everybody that I know in my life. We all are human. We all are imperfect, but we all have the capability to also change, ourselves, our lives, and our perception of the world that we live in. If you think about it this way, if everybody is focusing on one thing all at one time, there's so much energy that goes into that. And the more and more that I go into this path deeper and deeper of being really highly spiritual, and this is just my life now, this is all I do, is work with people, talk with people, and work on myself continually to just keep aligning with this, the more I see that it's just growing and expanding so quickly. Like there's so many people who are either becoming more aware or have been aware for some time and are expanding on their gifts. It's like this big collective opening that's happening right now, and it's very real. It's very tangible. Like if you look for it, you will find it, right? So absolutely, if we can find in ourselves, be the change you want to see in the world, right? Be the change you want to see in the world, and it starts in here. It starts in here, and it starts in working on ourselves, our hearts, our minds, our bodies, and our spirits. And the more that we can do that, the more that we will find that our immediate world shifts, the people that we're interacting with, our relationships will change, and it's just a ripple effect from there. And there's also, the planets and the sun are all part of the solar system, right? So the things that the planets are doing and the way that they're moving absolutely does affect our planet and the way that we are operating. We recently shifted into the Aquarius age. This is actually something that has happened on an astrological level. So now we are in the age of Aquarius. The Aquarius astrological sign is all about information and ideas and language and, getting really creative and fluid with our thoughts and, unthought of ideas and, maybe even inventions. And so this is the type of energy that we're moving into. And so it's so fitting, also, like I said, with the technology playing a vital role, the fact that we're having this conversation because of technology. And, technology is kind of like a very Aquarian type energy, in my opinion. So, yes, and then, solar flares and the moon, right? We all know that the moon affects the tides on our planet. So if our bodies are, what is it, 98% water, of course, the moon is going to affect us as well. So having an awareness of all of those things absolutely has improved my quality of life, but I also don't allow it to control my quality of life. You know, Mercury is currently in retrograde or coming out of retrograde, and that can create a lot of havoc with communication and things like that. And you know, people kind of, at least in my community that I'm in, everybody's like, "Oh no, it's Mercury retrograde. Like, let's put our hands over our heads," and it doesn't have to be that way. You know, having an awareness that these things are happening, and also still again being able to change the perception and like, okay, this is happening, but also here's what I'm going to do to not allow that to make my life a train wreck, right? So yeah, that's how I see that. Oh man, what is the future of AI with humans? I mean, I I don't know. You know, I'm gonna be really honest. There is subtle, but there are fears around that. You know, AI is expanding so quickly, and it's crazy, but at the same time, it's also very exciting. It's very exciting. You know, it's again the perception is so important. You know, I started using AI in writing, you know, out some things for my business that I was creating about a year and a half ago. And, you know, just creating documents and little blurbs. And it's like, it's a very helpful tool. And it is like the hive mind. You know, AI collects all the information from all of us and has it all in this central location. So on a certain level, it's beautiful that we can ask AI literally anything, and it will come up with a very formulated response based on everybody's, you know, insights and information. On the other end of the spectrum, it's like, can it evolve so quickly that it becomes smarter than us? Right? Like, this is a question that some people ask, and you know, I don't get caught up in, again, I don't get caught up in doomsday stuff or anything like that. You know, maybe the robots will take over, I don't know, but I don't really believe that. You know, I think that AI has been created, again, as a tool to assist us as humans in reaching this next level of realities of our lives, of consciousness. I think it is a tool that we can use to do that. And it's up to us as individuals to decide how are we going to use AI and how do we want it to, you know, how do we want to interact with it and what can it do for us and what can't it do for us. And we're still in the evolving stage where we still can decide and choose that for ourselves. I think that I think that technology is going to play a very vital role in the way that we communicate and in the way that we operate as a race. It already has been. You know, the fact that we're even doing this podcast today is a very clear example of that. So to me, it seems like we're we have the capability to become more united, and I think that technology has the potential to play a very vital role in doing that. It also, you know, it's a two-edged sword. You know, technology is also very dangerous at the same time. So, but that's what I see in terms of that is technology being like that sort of catalyst that helps that. Mm, I think the best way to prepare for the future, first and foremost, is to become present with what is and to become present with yourself, ourselves. That's the work. So the best way to prepare for the future is to get to know yourself and start unraveling the stories that you've been living your entire life. we all have the capability to change ourselves, and that's in fact the only change we can really effectively make at the end of the day is the change in ourselves. And so what this has looked like for me and how this feels for me is really getting comfortable with my imperfections and getting to know all of the sides, all of the colors of my personality. And in doing that, it makes me so much more capable of accepting all of the colors and shades of other people's personalities, right? And in doing that, it creates this strong faith that we are all such beautiful people and we're all filled with such beautiful potential. And in that, sharing that vision, helping other people to see themselves and see the world that way, that to me is where the change happens. It starts in here. So if you want to see a different world, be the change you want to see in the world. It starts in here. And I love helping people with this process, and I still continue to go through this process myself. So if you are, in a state of questioning this, absolutely reach out to me. Rhythm, Roots, and Faith, my business, this is what it's all about, is helping people to find their connection to themselves and beyond, whatever that looks like for them. So absolutely reach out to me if you are looking for clarity or guidance in being able to do that for yourself and change your life, your world, your perception. So my experience of God and the angels is ever changing and very fluid. I do visualize, I do have meditation, and I do see in my third eye, I can see what I believe are angelic beings. And I also hear, not so much hear like voices, but I get these senses and these knowings of messages that are coming for me, hearing certain things in my mind of things that maybe I should do or things that I should try. I also know 100% for sure that my spirit team, my angels, God, whatever it is, speaks through people to me all the time. So when I'm in conversations with people, sometimes things will be said, and it's like that was a very clear message. So I think, my knowledge of the third eye did not really come to me until after. I'm not sure. I think my experience with the chakras and understanding of that actually started before that. I was always studying spirituality even before I got sober. And I studied Buddhism and Eastern philosophy. I read books, and so I think there was an awareness and an understanding about the chakra system, but like fully embodying the understanding of what the third eye does, what the chakra system does, that didn't come until after sobriety. And so, those experiences of being near death and now being here today, I believe, that, my whole energetic being was very greatly upgraded, or however you want to word it, through those experiences, and it continues to happen. It's not over. The more that I work on myself, on my heart, on my being, and so the third eye is really like this ulterior way of being able to see the world in a different way. And so to me, what it represents and what it does is the ability to sort of filter life in a different way. So even though we may have experienced abuse as children, even though maybe we are in abusive relationships, maybe our government is very, controlling, whatever it is, workplace dynamics that are difficult, whatever these situations are that we go through in life, if we can get to a place where we can know that we are able to change our perception here in the third eye, is where that happens, and that's where that power lies. Because if we can change the way that we see ourselves, we can change the way that we see the world, and therefore our world changes. How can people connect with me? So I have my personal Facebook page. My name is Cassie, Cassie, Polzin, Polzin. You can find me on my personal page. You can find me on my business Facebook page, Rhythm, Roots, and Faith. You can also email me at rhythmrootsandfaith@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your insights, your takeaways, any of those things. And if you're looking for assistance in being able to do what I do, just don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here for it. I love helping people. I love having conversations. This is what I do. So I'm grateful, and I look forward to hearing from you.